Why do people continually come back?
Where it's the guest experience.
What other values would you say that you wanted to really instill in the business?
There's like two parts to it, but team unity is huge.
If you could just grab everybody by the shoulder and say, if you could understand one thing better about what we do, or better about my industry, what might that be?
I think sometimes people think that we're walking away with all of that cash.
Stephanie, I'm so thankful for you to join us today on the Best of White Rock. We were able to do an onboarding call to learn a little bit more about your business, and there's so many cool stories that you were able to share with us, not only about running your business, but also some things that are above and beyond what you do with your business and into the community and just for the greater good. Mm-hmm. So it couldn't come quick enough to have you in here and to sit down, and we'd love to share your story with everybody. And I guess probably the first part of that is letting everybody know who you are. We know who you are, but please tell everybody who you are.
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm Stephanie Wright, owner of Mystique Hair Design. I started in October of 2005 when I feel like I was just a baby. And yeah, just been an uphill run ever since then. And it's been a pleasure doing business on East Beach.
Yeah, so you're right down on Marine Drive, right?
I am.
Yeah, and you've been there since 2005. So I know I remember you telling me it's been a long time. And actually, and you've got some employees that have been with you like for I guess forever.
Yeah, longest standing is 2009.
Isn't it incredible?
And in 2010 and 2012, 2015, they've been around for a while with me.
That's amazing. And it is so. And my understanding was that the hairstylist industry, would that be the way to describe it? Yeah. It's fairly transitory, right? For people that typically like do that sort of thing. Why are they sticking with you? Like why are they hanging out?
It is a very big deal, and I think the way I lead and the way I want to, run my business. I run it with my values and then our mission and vision at the forefront of like every decision that I make. So I think when they come to me with a problem, actually most of the time they're coming to me with a solution. But I lead with that empathy and love first. And so they know that when they come to me with a problem or something that's going on in life, that I'll meet them where they're at. And I think that part, not just being a business owner and looking for profits first, that is a huge part of business, but at the same time, I have their best interest at mind and they know that.
Well, that's obviously shining to them, to have that sort of longevity with employees. And I love what you said too about your values. So you started the business, from my understanding, because you wanted to be different. And there was a couple ways that you wanted to be different. What was that journey like, and what was kind of important to you about standing out in the field that you were going to pursue?
Yeah, I had my own 3 salons that I had worked for, and in my, between the age of 15 to 27 when I opened my own, I worked for 3 different salons. And so I knew some of the stuff that I didn't want to do or I didn't want to make people feel like.
Sure.
So that's the way I kind of went into treating my employees. And then the other side was I wanted the guest experience to be completely different. So I wanted to train employees how to treat people really, really well. And I think we do a really good job of that. Now, I haven't been perfect in those 20 years. I've grown a lot. But, there's always that willing to grow and to learn and to lead different.
So what did you experience in these salons where you saw maybe the way people were treated, or maybe the way the business operated that could go any which way, but you said that's not the right way to do it? What was that change like? Well,
one thing that just comes to mind, there was one summer I had 11 weddings of friends, and I was told I could go to 2. And that was heartbreaking for me, because I wanted to be part of each one of their weddings and their big days. And so I just thought, I can't do this. And so now when I have employees that are like, I've used all of my vacation, but my grandfather has invited me to go on this really cool trip to Europe. How can we make this work? Right. And I'm like, I would never say no to you having that opportunity. And that does happen, you use your vacation time or stuff. So then we find ways to make that work for them and for me. And so they always feel really valued and heard. So that was one of the ways, or, the way an employer could treat you like a workhorse. And so I really want them to feel like they have their own say in their scheduling. So how many days a week do you want to work? How many hours a week do you want to work? What do you want your life to look like? And as a mom myself, I go, that word balance is a really hard word. I think we strive for that, but we don't always execute it. So I always talk about, instead of balance, I talk about seasons and shifts. And September for a mom can be really, really busy. And then same with December and June. So how can we kind of align how we schedule things during those busier times so that you're not feeling stressed, overwhelmed, and then break down?
Well, that's amazing. And part of the reason for the longevity then as well, because it sounds a lot more like a family relationship that maybe you're like the mom where you give the kids money kind of thing too for showing up. But it sounds more like a family relationship. And what a compliment too to have that sort of longevity with your employees, because they obviously feel valued. They obviously feel secure, in their work and with you and everything that you're able to provide them and whatnot. And then to give them that balance that you're mentioning is pretty exciting, because it doesn't exist. You in every organization, you talked about values, right? So one of your values obviously is to treat your employees like family and make sure that they feel respected.
Yes.
What other values would you say that you wanted to really instill in the business? Was there something that you said, I've seen it done this way, and that will not be the way that I will run my business?
Yeah.
What are some of those other values that you think that you brought?
That's huge. So there's two parts to it, but team unity is huge.
Okay.
And it really shifts cultures. So when you have really great team unity, and you have everybody kind of bought into that, I really found that when I was communicating well with them and bringing them into decision making and then giving them a little bit more say in things that happened, hey, let's talk about this. And whether that's in a staff meeting or a round table or how that works, how it comes down. And again, I don't do things perfectly all across the board, but I think, slowly implementing things like that where they feel really important, and taking you outside the salon for certain things. So we do once a year where we do a little retreat, and everybody brings food and everybody participates in whether that's swimming or rowing and stuff like that, where you can see each other in a different light than just work all the time.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And how does that translate into the people that you service when they come into your organization? If your employees feel valued and they feel respected and they feel like they're part of something bigger. There's a great story about asking a janitor at NASA. I'm going to botch it here now, but they asked the janitor, "What do you do?" And he could have answered, "I sweep the floors." His response was, "I help make the rockets take off." Or something along those lines. And just that mindset of you're in there for something bigger, and creating something bigger is really neat. And that's how you get loyalty from employees and longevity. And it sounds like that's what you're accomplishing. And that will carry over to your to the customers that you serve.
Totally. That guest experience is, I was saying goodbye to an employee yesterday as I was walking out the door, and I was just like, "Hey, have a good night, see you tomorrow." And her guest that was sitting in her chair was like, "I just love the vibe in here. Everybody gets along, and you guys all have such great," I forget what the word was that she used, but knowing that she actually feels our energy. And so if we weren't all getting along, now we are all women in a salon, and so there is days that you have to go in and be like, "I was fighting with my husband today. I just need you guys to know that it's not you today,
right.
That there's something going on, a shift, but I'm going to do my best to kind of put that aside and be here today."
Yeah.
But people do feel that energy, and when we are giving our best, we do something different in the guest experience, where we give every single person that sits down something called a beauty ritual. So
ritual. Okay. What's that?
We sit it in front of them, a tray, and it has a hand scrub on it. It has a steam towel with eucalyptus, infused with eucalyptus, so it's a nice scent.
Wow.
Then it has a hand cream and a lemon tea and a chocolate. And so when you sit down to get your hair done, you have a little exfoliating hand treatment. You then take that steam towel and you wipe that exfoliant off. Then you kind of seal the essential oils in with the cream, and it kind of grounds you in that moment of everything that's happened today, I'm like sitting here and I get to spend the next hour or 3 just like calm.
Yeah.
And I think that like sets a precedent for it. And it's something that I used to always talk about, like treating our guests like gold, treat them like gold. Everybody is, like a celebrity. Everybody's a star. And I think we've taken that really well into, not overly like, bowing down to everybody, but definitely giving them that experience that they go, that was different. And I felt really good.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, so they come in and they feel like a rock star, right?
Yeah.
And you don't get that. I mean, for many people, I'm sure getting their hair styled is relatively mechanical, right? Especially maybe men. I'm assuming. I know for me, sometimes I feel that way anyways. It's like, it's just a job to tick off the box. Yeah. But I think more so for women, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is your industry, but like it's almost like a ritual of self-care and enjoyment. And I mean, it's a big deal when someone gets their hair done and they come out and they feel like $1 million, and you can add to that experience by the way that you welcome them into your facility. Yeah,
and you're trading your hard-earned dollars to pay for me to give you a service. And so we want to do our best. So you not only look, but feel so good after that service. And so that transaction of money isn't really taken into account, because there is really no dollar value that can make me feel as good as I do walking out of the door.
I love that. People won't remember what you said. They'll just remember how you made them feel, right?
Absolutely.
And so my next thought was like, so why do people continue, like you've built such a great business, why do people continually come back? In your opinion, it's because they feel valued, they feel like part of the team, like what
that's super consistent across like our Google reviews, for instance. Where it's the guest experience, and it's like I've jumped from a chair to chair to chair in here because her schedule didn't work with mine or whatever, and it wasn't like we've built that environment of being like, go see anybody else in here. We're a team, and we have your color history, we have notes on you and stuff like that. And you can see anybody and you're gonna get that beauty ritual and you're gonna feel really amazing and you're gonna get a great haircut, you're gonna get a great service. The creativity might be a little bit different, or the longevity of like who's been a stylist the longest might be a little bit different, but you're gonna have a really amazing experience no matter who you go to. And
so you've been on White Rock Beach for forever, like a really, really long time. So you've probably met like the bulk of the community, just like cutting every, I remember when I did that, and I'm sure you've met just a ton of people in the community.
What's so cool is that people just walk by and wave, or we see the same guy going down all the time to kiteboard and we're like, hey, or like, you broke your leg, what happened? So yeah, we see that community and they in turn look after us. We actually got broken into on New Year's. Yeah, okay. December 31st. Yeah. 5 a.m, they came and they wiped us out of all of our aerosol hairsprays. Why?
What is there a market for that after?
No.
My goodness.
There's not a market for that.
That's interesting.
But yeah, our neighbors were just devastated. A man came and helped me sweep, and one said, I heard that, I heard the alarm going off. I jumped out of bed to see if it was my car, went back to sleep, and they're going for their early morning jogs and walks, and they're like, Steph, I'm so sorry, and you feel that. You're like, there's nothing you could have done, but, like, thank you. And like the coffee shop, everybody walking around, like you do know people. And even when sometimes you see 1 million people that you don't know, you still I feel so part of that community.
That's so cool. Yeah. So do you feel that like being a big part of the White Rock community, especially with the longevity of the business and whatnot, has that impacted the way that you do business at all? Like obviously it's so customer focused. You must run into people all the time just out on the street and whatnot, as you're mentioning. Like, has that impacted? Did you always start with this kind of guest ritual and the way that you wanted people to come, or that's something that's evolved over time?
Yes. Yeah. So I always knew I wanted to, like that whole treat people like gold.
Right.
I always knew I wanted that, but I didn't necessarily know how to do that well.
Sure.
And then even just being part of the beach and looking out at that amazing ocean has like veered us into a sustainability side of business that we never thought. So even like how I run the business, like with like our values, the sustainability portion actually, comes into effect. So when product lines come to us and stuff, we go through like, is it sustainable? Is it, like farmed? Like how are those ingredients brought in? So we have a lot of like our vision, mission, values in every single decision that we make. And so when even a staff might come and say, hey, let's look at this product line, I don't go, no, we're not looking at that.
Right.
I'm like, hey, let's all try it. Let's come back after us in a staff meeting. Let's see, does it align with our values? Does it align with like our core beliefs? Does it perform for what we want it to perform for? And then those decisions are made very, very easy from there, and they all feel part of that.
I love that. I love that. And I read this good thing the other day that said, culture is what you do when people aren't watching. And, so the average person coming in, if you're doing a shampoo or whatever that might be, or whatever products you're using, and you've put so much thought into what's going into that experience and also the impact of that experience, whereas they might not even recognize that. But that's such a strong culture to build. Yeah. And that's what gets people on board. I mean, hence another reason maybe for such longevity with, with your employees and whatnot. They feel part of the mission. Yeah,
and something cool that people don't know, like as the hair is getting clipped and like falling to the ground and we're sweeping it and like it goes into a central vac, that bag from the central vac gets shipped to a company called Matter of Trust, and Matter of Trust then puts it into a boom. And when there's an oil spill, your hair actually absorbs the oil and like saves the ocean. And so there's like tiny little like micro, little decisions that are made all throughout like the business to make it what it is.
I was so curious where you were going with that. I'm thinking you're going to say like if pillows get stuffed with it or something.
No. Like old ladies' nylons get stuffed with hair. Yeah. And then if there isn't, for a long period of time, if there isn't any oil spills, it actually gets turned into flooring and chairs and stuff like that. Your hair can be recycled.
That's so interesting. Yeah. Oh, that's really, and you've done a lot of work. We were talking a little bit about some staff that had gone overseas to help out. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so we worked hand in hand with a organization called Ally Global. Okay. Ally Global does some of the rehabilitation of women, children, men too, that have been rescued from human trafficking. So that element is where they get rescued, but then what happens next, right? Okay. And so they're in these safe houses, and then they need freedom to have jobs and stuff like that. Some of them were looking into doing hair and what that looked like. And so we were asked to come over, spend 2 weeks doing some training and some inspiration. So on the second trip that we went there, we were able to actually get all of them into hair school that were interested. Like we were not pushing anybody into this, but the girls that were interested in going further with this, we got them into hair school and licensed in their own country to do hair. And they are now in salons and doing like diplomats' hairs and like huge stuff where that was not their life and that was not even a dream years ago. So it was very, very cool to be part of that. And we try and do like local stuff too. Sure. We've worked with City Dream Center. We've worked with Mercy Ministries, Wagner Hills. Like there's lots of little things that we do again behind the scenes. And sometimes we try not to like post a lot of that on social media to pat our own back, but it is really amazing what comes out of us doing some philanthropy.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And even who would have even thought that was a thing, right? I mean, that's so neat. And now I'm thinking too, like branding. You can write the word international underneath your your sign. We've been all over the world.
We've been everywhere.
We've been everywhere, all over the world. Yeah. What I'm always curious about like various industries and stuff like that. And I love your response on this. When people go to decide where to spend their money to get their styling done, and it's a big deal for people. Oftentimes, like I know when my wife goes and gets styling done, I'm like, and I'm one of those terrible husbands that like sometimes I don't notice, and like so I make notes to make sure I remember to say something.
Hey, put it in your calendar.
100%, right? Yeah.
Wife got hair done.
You can do like an online course just to get husbands, keep them out of trouble, right? But like when people are making decisions on where to go get their styling done and where to go spend their money, and I love that you're so appreciative of those people and recognize that they could go many places.
They can.
What's one thing that you if you could just grab everybody by the shoulder and say, if you could understand one thing better about what we do or better about my industry, what might that be? What's some things that are maybe misconceptions or the things that you're talking about as an example are a great example of this is things that we're quietly doing behind the scenes, but we don't post on social media about them. It's not about that. It's about doing the right thing. There's so many ways to unpack that. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let you take it.
Totally, yeah. Misconceptions about our industry. I think when you buy a t-shirt, you're buying a t-shirt and you exchange your money for that. When you're buying hair, there's say in a coloring service for your wife and stuff like that, there is a big ticket associated with that. So I think sometimes people think that we're walking away with all of that cash and going, and it's like, actually, it just, it got spread pretty thin.
Yeah.
So we are not, in any way trying to rob people. The industry is not regulated, which is actually a bad thing in BC and Canada in general, I think, is there could be hairstylists in any salon that actually don't have their ticket. So they haven't gone through and done the scalp training and stuff like that. And I think that is what adds value again in our salon, is that everybody does have a license to do that. And so we've gone through schooling and then we continue to go to school. So I would say, to people, do your homework. If the price is cheap, then there might be a reason.
Sure. Well, you get what you pay for in life. I mean, it's such a thing, and I think people misunderstand that about business. Like the person that does our HVAC at our house is a great example of this. They send out this interesting thing when you get your bill, and it talks about where all that money goes. And I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes the consumer's like, look, I'm just focused on pricing. Those people you're not going to win, right? Those people that are strictly looking for the lowest dollar amount, you're not going to win those. But it's interesting when you run a business, you understand there's taxes, there's rent, there's paying my employees, there's stocking the shelves, having product, you like electricity, that's all there too, right? People don't necessarily understand that sometimes, and we're in a world too where things have just gotten more expensive. I always joke, I feel like an old man when I look at food when I go out now. I'm like, what's going on? Why is this so expensive, right?
I'm like, we're not talking about that on date night.
Yeah, 100%.
We chose this restaurant, so we're not even looking at the prices.
Yeah.
That's it.
I love it. Well, and you know what? Again, it all ties back to the way that people feel when they come into your salon. And if you can make them feel the way that I know so many people do after they have your experience with you, then I think that's really good. What is one reason why people should come visit you?
Well, our beauty philosophy is we leave people and the planet better. Love it. That, I just want people to know that we look for ways in everything that we do to have a world that our kids can enjoy this beach that we're enjoying. I have a little patio set in front of the salon that we get to eat our lunch for 4 or 5 months, on. So, and then we want to leave people always better. So the way you feel when you leave our store and our little 800 square feet is that we would leave you feeling amazing.
I love that. So how do people get a hold of you? How do they book an appointment if they want to come?
You can give us a call. You can text us, the same phone number that you call us and text us. You can visit mystiquehairdesign.com. You can look at us. It's Mystique Hair Design on socials. And we're there. We're everywhere.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we'll make sure all your information is in the show notes as well. But I just wanted to appreciate you for coming down. It's such a cool story, and I was felt really fortunate that you were able to share it with everybody. So thank you.
No, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, thank you so much, and we'll wish you lots of luck.